Hey guys, welcome back to the Gladiator Overland. I wanted to sum up my week in this truck and give you guys some final thoughts, as well as doing a little bit of a walk around and showing you what this looks like in the daytime. I uploaded a initial impressions video at night, so you get a chance to kind of see what this thing looks like, what the headlights, how they perform. But let's take a look around this and show you guys this beautiful red in the daylight. So I've really enjoyed this Gladiator this week. It's a really, really nice, refined Jeep. It's a better Wrangler. It's a nice truck, depending on your usage. It is only available in the crew cab with a 5-foot bed. I assume, that's because this is a pretty popular, or Chrysler thinks that this is going to be a pretty popular iteration of this truck. If you're looking for something with a longer bed and a shorter cabin, then the Gladiator's probably not for you, but I think this is a pretty versatile package as it sits, and hardcore truck buyers may not be the intended market for this. This is a little bit more of a lifestyle off-road vehicle, and I think for that purpose it really hits the mark. This Overland is a little bit more luxurious, so this thing it's fully loaded. It's got all the options that you would really want. It has the safety package, it has technology, it has the locking differentials, the Dana axles, it's got a lot. I mean, it's 55 grand with a starting price of around 40,000. So there's really a lot to like here as far as creature comforts, but it is pricey. Back seat, you've got a raisable storage compartment here. These seats come up nicely. You can fit a bike back here. You've got your tire jack and everything down below. I mean, it's a pretty standard Jeep Wrangler interior in here. It's white. Scratchy plastic is kind of strange above the roof. You do have some headliner though, which is nice. I'm sure that reduces noise a little bit at speed. .6-liter V6. Pretty much the same running gear as you would get in a Wrangler. 8-speed automatic transmission that works great. Try not to repeat myself too much, but really the high points for me on this truck are that, fantastic reverse camera, for one, the best I've ever seen in a car probably, and really nice ergonomics. There's buttons and knobs and dials for just about everything. It all falls to hand very easily. The only place where the ergonomics get a little bit funky are the window switches. But it's nice that they're centrally located so that drivers and the passenger can operate them. Stop start working well there. Works pretty quickly, pretty immediately. I'm going to turn that off though. I like that it's accessible. All these buttons are so nice and close to the wheel. The touchscreen is a perfect height and size. It works really well with Apple CarPlay. This is one of my first videos with Apple CarPlay after the update. And we'll do a little audio test here in a bit as well. Sound system is good. It's a little bit bass heavy, but it does the job. You can kind of tweak your equalizer and get pretty nice sound quality out of it. The biggest win with this Gladiator is the overall refinement and feeling of quality. So when you compare this to any Jeep that you've ever driven, this thing actually drives and handles and rides as close to a normal vehicle as you can. It's very comfortable, it's very refined. The steering is nice and tight. It doesn't wallow around. It handles fairly well. Everything is tuned to have really nice road manners. And for how capable this thing is off-road, that's a really, really welcome change. I wish Jeep would do the same thing to the Wrangler, because honestly, that thing's a little bit of a dog to drive on the street. It adds to its charm, but this Gladiator is charming to drive too. It's fun. It has a little bit of personality to it, and I admire Jeep for retaining that. It's kind of hard to get into a modern vehicle with a little bit of character, a little bit of personality these days, and this Gladiator definitely still has that. So more refinement, but still a lot of fun to drive. I think the highest compliment I can pay to a car is that I would totally daily drive one of these. I would buy one of these, and that's the case here. Not sure if I'd swing for the Rubicon or the Overland.
Police reported ahead.
This is a pretty good option, honestly, just because of how much street driving that I do use a vehicle for. But it would be nice to have something that's off-road capable as well and looks a little bit cooler, like the Rubicon does. Really, the only concession you're making with this Gladiator being a Jeep is that there's a little bit of wind noise in the front. This front A-pillar, the front end, the almost vertical windshield gives you quite a bit of sound, but it's not too bad. You can still hold a conversation in here. Look at this handling. Look at the steering response. You turn the wheel, and the front tires turn without a half a second delay. It's amazing. Revolutionary. It's definitely the best Jeep that I've ever driven, and it's, I think, one of the nicer, smaller trucks on sale. This thing is super long, but it's narrow, so it doesn't feel like it has a massive footprint on the road. And as long as you're able to back into a parking space at the grocery store or when you're out taking it around town, it's not that big either. It's just super long. It's not something you're going to want to be parallel parking in the city. I think the power is adequate. Like I said in the last video, unless if you're towing or up at altitude. Here in Michigan, this V6 has plenty of pull to it. It sounds decent. It's just an old engine, but I think they're pretty bulletproof, and you shouldn't really have too many concerns with it. It doesn't sound too horrible. I've been getting decent gas mileage all week, about 18.7 miles to the gallon, with a pretty even mix of city and highway driving. Ride quality is awesome. Over bumps, it's very well isolated and nicely damped. For having solid axles front and rear, there's really a lot of nice suspension tuning going on here. This being a Jeep, also has pretty good turning radius. There's also a little bit of a nimbleness to this Gladiator. Made it. Brake pedals feels decent. A lot of complaining from the tires, but there's a decent amount of mechanical grip here for a truck. Brake pedal has a nice feel to it. There's a decent amount of bite there. I like the steering in this Gladiator too. There's a a lightness, and it returns to center nicely. The wheel's a good size. It's wrapped in a fairly pleasant leather to the touch. I think it'll age well too. Let's pull up here and let's get a little bit of a sound test going. Bumps in here. You can definitely eliminate a lot of the wind noise with just turning the volume up. I have these speakers tuned a little bit differently. Let's see if we can go in here. Show you guys how I have the equalizer set. Everything leveled out. The bass is too high, the trebles are too weak, but this sounds pretty nice. Go. Nice little idea of what the speakers sound like. Hopefully you're wearing headphones for all that. You'll get the idea with the binaural microphones. At speed, I do really like the cruise control system. So there's two systems here. There's the radar guided cruise control, which you can adjust your following distance, and then there's just good old-fashioned standard cruise control. Something that not a lot of companies that offer radar guided cruise control have accessible quickly, easily, as this Jeep does. So you can switch between the systems just by pressing the different buttons, and it's pretty nice. I like that. Radar guided system seems to work quite well. It slows down nicely. It's smooth to drive. You can skip by 5-mile-an-hour increments by holding the buttons up or down. And let's see how well it passes here. Takes a little bit of a minute here to get going, but once it does, it's going to give us a pretty decent amount of acceleration. And we're off. Easy. At speed, it feels stable, not too wallowy. There's a little bit of drifting in the lane, but nothing even close to the Wrangler. I'd say this is a great car for a road trip. You could drive this in the long haul and not be worried about having to constantly make adjustments. It's very comfortable. You've got a nice high driving position. Other than the wind noise, really no complaints about the way this thing drives. It's pretty spot on. Jeep nailed the dynamics on this new Gladiator. I'm sure a lot of that is in part to the Ram's rear suspension geometry and influence, but they've just done a nice job tightening up the front end too, and that helps a lot. It makes a big difference. guys. Well, that's about all I have to say on the Gladiator. I mean, nothing revolutionary here in terms of new thoughts and opinions. A lot of people have reviewed these vehicles already and pretty much said the same things I have. I do really like this a lot as a Jeep and as a truck. I think FCA knocked it out of the park with this, and I would like to have an opportunity to do some off-roading. I didn't have time this week just because of everything going on, but I will get into a Rubicon one of these days and go out to the off-road park, probably the new one in Oakland County, and say hey to some of the guys out there because they have a fleet of these and we can get some good off-roading footage. I've heard they're incredibly capable. Even this Overland can do a ton, and it might be a pretty good way to go if you don't want to shell out the 60 grand for the Rubicon. It's nice that you can spec these kind of at whatever levels you want. Of course, press cars are always loaded to the max, and this may be a little bit more expensive than what you would need out of a Jeep. I think ultimately the bones of this are good, and you can kind of add whatever you want. But really solid truck. Feels like it's well made too. It's not something I've necessarily said a lot about FCA products, but this does feel like a quality item, and getting in here with all the luxuries and the amenities, it feels about like a $55,000 truck. It's nice. So anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Curious to see any owners' experiences with these Overlands. Everyone that I know who's bought one loves them, and yeah, probably can't go too wrong. So thanks for watching, guys. We will see you in another video later this week, and after that, taking a little break, getting married, spending some time with my wife, and we'll bring you some more reviews in December. Thanks again. We'll see you later.